everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I am Namrata Chakravarti, a member of Doctors for a Cause, and I'm a second year MBBS student. So, today's webinar, Life in a Pandemic, is an combined effort from us, EmoSync, and Dr. Tirthankar Guha Thakurta to spread awareness and educate us all about our mental health. So firstly, I'd like to transfer the mic over to Azhar to brief us about this interface and say a few words about EmoSync. Over to you, Azhar.
Yeah, thanks, Namrata. Uh, Very good evening to everyone who have joined in today. So, first of all, I'll brief a little about EmoSync. EmoSync is a mental health startup. We mostly work on the awareness domain. We also have our own online platform, emosync.com, where you can just come in, log in, and just have a conversation about your emotions and your mental health issues. You can also seek professional help from there and simply ask any queries that you might find difficult going through. Now, that's about EmoSync. Coming to the interface, today's webinar. Many of you might not be very accustomed with this portal, so I'll just give you a walkthrough. You might see there are a number of options to interact with the trainers and with other attendees. Many of you have already explored the chat box. So beside the chat box, you might also see another option called chat with trainers. If you have any specific question that you want to specifically privately ask the trainers, feel free to post your questions there. There's also a questions tab specifically for your questions. If you ask a question there, we can also show it to everyone attending this webinar and have a discussion over it. Now, since the number of participants in this webinar are a very good number, so we have to maintain a certain communication protocols to have a better communication with each and everyone. So there are a few simple steps. Many of you I see already know it, but I'll still repeat. Uh, if the trainer is saying something and you want to say okay, you just write down K in the chat box. If the trainer is asking a question and the answer is in yes or no, you write Y for yes and N for no in the chat box. If you have sorry, if you have a question to ask, you can put it in the chat with trainer box or the question box. It is suggested that you do not write your question in the chat box because there is a probability that it might get lost amongst the other texts. Finally, if you have a concern to raise, a point to make, or something to add over something the trainer might be saying, write down an exclamation mark in the chat box and we will get back to you. You will be given mic access temporarily and you can make your point. So that's all. Enjoy today's webinar. Namrata, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much. So, moving on, I'll be introducing you to the format of this webinar. Before that, I'll talk a little bit about Doctors for a Cause. So, Doctors for a Cause is an NGO based out of Kolkata. We do a lot of groundwork here and ranging from awareness camps, health camps, etc. So, this month of May, we are celebrating the Mental Health Month, where we are trying to spread awareness regarding the same. So, to know more about us, please stay tuned to the end, where we'll share with you our other events which are coming up in the Mental Health Month. So, the webinar is designed today to address a few topics like the uncertainty which we are feeling right now due to the COVID situation, the lockdown, extended periods of lockdown, what it is and how it is affecting our lives, our mental health, our relationships, and as students, how it is affecting our education. So I'll introduce you to our speaker tonight, Dr. Tirthankar Gohatakurta. He's a person who needs no introduction to all the students who know him. He's a teacher, he's a faculty at KPC Medical College, and besides that, he's an academician, a scholar, and a friend to all of his students. So I'd like to transfer the mic over to Dr. Thakurta and request him to say a few words. Over to you.
Um, Hello, everyone, and good evening. So, I'm really glad, Namrata, that Doctors for a Cause is arranging such webinars at a regular interval to generate awareness on mental health issues. And uh, because of the Mental Health Awareness Month, we have got an excuse to bring the issue of mental health out of the bag. And I just hope that this continues throughout. People should continue to feel safe in their campus, in their workplace, in their home, and they should always know that there is someone the person can trust, confide in, and discuss without stigma about their mental health conditions. Thank you for inviting me.
So it is a great honor for us that you have joined us tonight here. So moving on, firstly, I'd like to address this ongoing uncertainty we have now and how is it affecting us, our mental health in general. So what is your take on it?
See, this lockdown is very unprecedented. It's a situation where we did not expect. I mean, this was totally unexpected. It happened out of a sudden. And also, importantly, uh, am I visible to you?
No, sir, I don't think.
Okay.
Yes, you're now visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, uh, as I was saying, that this was totally unprecedented and also totally unwelcome. And what is important here is you see that when a pandemic like this hits us out of the blue, people already had their plans. They had their plans based on their day-to-day expectations, routines, works. Suddenly, everything come to a halt. And when everything comes to a halt at a point of almost no repair, you start wondering first as to whether your life has become purposeless or meaningless, leading to stress and anxiety. And thereafter, maybe over time, you start prioritizing your necessities, thinking over whether those which you thought to be the real priorities were actual priorities. So, for
Right.
example, like people had examinations, people had office appointments, people had career plans. They all got totally shunned because of this pandemic situation. But now, as the lockdown is extending, I think the anxiety is partly because they are not in hold of their life anymore. They cannot plan ahead and control how they will move forward with their life. I think that is one big point where people are getting very anxious.
So at this situation, how is it affecting our mental health? Like, is it making us more anxious about our future, about our lives? So, what would you say about this?
Yes, over the last few weeks, the kind of webinars that I was a part of, we found that most of the questions that people wanted to ask us was regarding their uncertainties in life. So, the issues of uncertainty with the future and the present, the issues of stress, and also these kind of stress leading to disputes in relationships, in family, uh, excess irritability, alteration of the diurnal cycle. These are affecting people very much, and people are largely concerned with the uncertainty that is ahead of us.
Right. So, this anxiety can often lead to an like overwhelmed expression. We commonly call it as panic attack. So, what would you say about this? About panic attack?
Now, see, a panic attack is a part of, if you speak medically, it's a part of the anxiety spectrum disorders, and it has very specific criteria to call it a panic attack. So, any attack of panic may not be a panic attack, but nevertheless, the attacks of anxiety that people have, and those often mimicking the panic attacks, they are a major concern, particularly for people who already had a diagnosis of panic attack or agoraphobia. Now, you see that
Right.
panic attacks are attacks of severe anxiety. Now, this typically manifests in a way that suppose you are having a premonition of something going to go wrong, and then suddenly within 10 to 15 minutes there is a sudden accentuation of the symptoms. There is palpitation, dryness of throat, or sometimes neurological symptoms like fainting. And these symptoms uh, present in such dramatic fashion that sometimes they are confused with other disorders like a heart
Right.
attack or a stroke, and then gradually they subside over time. Individual people may have specific triggers for panic attacks also. So some people get panic attacks in specific situations from where escape may be difficult. There may be triggers of certain events happening that can generate a panic. For those people where confinement brings in panic, which is a very common stressor, I think
Hmm.
this lockdown is an ideal situation for them that will
Right.
create an environment of panic, because we are
Hmm.
confined in reality and there is no way we can escape the confinement. The problem here again is that with less availability of resources, with us not being totally able to go out and purchase medication or visit doctors, it's actually getting very difficult to treat comorbid psychiatric conditions.
Right. So, as you said, that having a panic attack is a very severe form of anxiety disorder. So, are there possibility that there are some milder forms, and how can we overcome them, and how can we recognize that this is going towards a panic attack situation?
See, anxiety in general manifests with a few common features, like there will be features of restlessness. For example, there may be features of palpitation, tremor, inability to sit in a single space, inability to concentrate and sleep. And this can be accentuated to a point where there are more physical symptoms like sweating, hmm, like abnormal rhythms of the heart. Panic attack is only one subtype of this anxiety spectrum. So many people can have anxiety in general in their life in various situations, something that we call a generalized anxiety disorder. Or they may have anxiety at the thought of some past trauma, something that we call a post traumatic stress disorder. There may be anxiety related to certain intruding thoughts in the mind of various issues like cleanliness, symmetry, color, something that we call obsessive compulsive disorder. Similarly, there
Right.
may also be social and environmental stressors or sometimes no stressor that can suddenly precipitate a severe attack of anxiety that escalates within 10 minutes and then gradually subsides. This last variety is the panic attack. A panic attack usually makes people panic because it mimics more serious medical conditions. And honestly,
Hmm.
without investigation or physical checkup, it's difficult to differentiate between a panic attack or its mimickers. So that is why panic attacks are slightly more concerning for the patient as well as the patient's caregivers.
Right. So, if in a family we see someone having a panic attack, maybe not as severe as you said, maybe much milder form. So, how do we manage the situation? How do we tell them that it's going to be okay and they are going to be okay?
First of all, it is very important to know whether the individual already had a diagnosis. So, if there was already a diagnosis and some kind of therapy, whether psychotherapy or drug therapy, was already going on, it is very important to continue the drug therapy. So most often, certain medications are given on regular basis for panic attack, and some medications are kept for emergency basis. So two kinds of
Right.
medications are usually prescribed. So say for example, various SSRI group of drugs may be prescribed for long-term maintenance and benzodiazepines for short-term control. It's very important that these drugs are already available at home. So it's important to order those drugs in the lockdown period so that you don't run out of them. Also
Hmm.
keep in touch with your health practitioner so that from time to time you can give updates. If there were therapeutic sessions going on, it's important that your therapist can arrange, if necessary, online counseling sessions where you can speak. Now coming to the point where either these are not available or where there is no prior diagnosis of panic attack. So there are certain ways in which the panic may be slightly prevented or slightly put in hold when the attack is happening in a situation where doctors are not available. So one can try slowly breathing in and breathing out, and this usually causes some degree of relaxation. It is important sometime to tense up all the muscles of the body while you take a deep breath in, and then relax the muscles as you breathe out. This is also called Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation. So that also helps in alleviating anxiety. Sometime holding on to something to prevent fall can be an important step. And very importantly, it's also another important thing is to be in touch of your senses. It's important that you can feel your fingers, you can feel your toes, you can feel where you are standing, you can consciously understand that you are hearing sounds and you are looking at something. And that way, this sudden loss of consciousness or sudden loss of control over oneself can be slightly prevented. So you can buy more time for the intervention to come.
Like we say, to be mindful
Yes, it's
when
like being
this is
mindful. It's exactly like being
yes.
mindful on a very acute basis.
So we have a question in our question tab. I think you almost answered the question. This is from Juhi Desai. In the present situation, there are many rumors regarding COVID, which makes my parents stay glued to the news channels, which in turn creates more panic and anxiety, which leads to unrest in the house. How do we stay calm and manage the panic?
Yes, this is a very important concern that with the
Yes.
availability of information through social media or through the press, now not only are we getting enlightened, we're also panicking more because it's like
Yes.
almost a
Over
running
information.
commentary on the death tolls. So people
Yes.
are freaking out. It is actually very important, Juhi, here that you discourage them to get glued to the social media or the press or the news channels at a very regular interval. It is actually quite sufficient to watch the news channels maybe once or twice a day. So that's therapeutic. If you do it, if a person is overdoing this exposure with news, this can actually bring in panic. One important reason, Namrata, why this probably is happening, because as I was mentioning, this is something that
Yes.
we have never seen before. It's totally
Exactly.
unforeseen. So it's something like even the most senior person in the family will say, I have never seen something like this before. So there is no
Right.
experience on which you can count on. There is no previous data set that can provide you some relief or show you a pattern as to where things are going. So randomly getting information and plotting that in your own mind to create a story, sometimes that can be actually counterproductive. It can generate more panic psychosis rather than calming you down.
Am I audible?
I cannot hear you, Namrata. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I am trying to reconnect again.
Yes.
Mm, So, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so even you're audible, but you're not visible.
But now you are visible.
Okay, let me transfer the session once again then. So, the session transfer is still on. You have the session access to you.
Okay.
So, it's showing that you have disabled your audio and video.
Hi, it's Azhar. I think there is some bandwidth issue from Sir's side.
Okay. So am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible,
Yes,
but you are not currently visible. We can probably keep along with the webinar, and this will get resolved by itself.
okay, so since sir is audible, we can take up a few questions which has come up. Meanwhile, we can fix this. So, Trishali is asking, you mentioned about confinement and anxiety, but agoraphobia is the major feature shown by patients. So, is it the new cases that come up or aggregation of feelings the of the prior patients?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question clearly. So can you slightly reframe it? Then it'll be easier for me to understand.
She says that you mentioned about the confinement leading to anxiety, but people who have agoraphobia, are they actually new cases who are having agoraphobia, or are they patients who had uh, features previously? Like, were they already diagnosed with having anxiety or not?
Okay. See, it's very difficult to say that way because I think what she's trying to ask me is that whether the anxiety is a new onset anxiety or is it an aggravation of the past anxiety diagnosis. It's very
Right.
difficult to comment on this because you see, even if no past diagnosis of any condition has been made, we cannot be sure that the condition did not exist. Say, for example, if today you measure my blood sugar and you find that my blood sugar is in the diabetic range, that doesn't prove that I became diabetic from today. I might have been diabetic for the last 10 years. Only incidentally, it was diagnosed today. So even if you diagnose a new case of agoraphobia and panic attack today, it does not necessarily mean that the onset of the disorder happened today. The onset could have happened much earlier also. So honestly, for any medical diagnosis, except for the acute cases, we cannot comment on the onset based on the timeline of diagnosis.
Right. We have a few more questions. One is Shubhamai asking how to prevent the anxiety or pressure due to delaying of exams and uncertainty over changing syllabus and all that. So this is a topic we'll be covering here in this webinar, in the later part of this webinar. So please stay tuned for this. And Kuldeep Biswas is asking, how can we make comeback to mainstream of life after emotional breakdown during this phase?
Uh, that is a very difficult question because you see, the only hopeful thing that we have learned from history is that nothing stays forever, neither good times nor bad times. So that is the only hopeful
Yeah,
thing that we can look forward to.
right. So moving to our next topic, or a different aspect of this lockdown, is the sleep schedule being hampered.
Hmm.
So would you tell us about our normal sleep cycle first, and then how it being disturbed affects us? So what would you say about our normal sleep schedule?
So there are a lot of opinions about how the sleeping schedule of a person should be arranged, and there is actually no universal pattern. What is important about the sleeping schedule is that it is part of the so-called daily cycle or circadian rhythm of the body. Now, circadian rhythms or the daily or diurnal rhythms have one very important peculiarity. What we call in our language is that they are entrainable. So, what that means is you can train your body to a particular routine, and then that routine is gradually picked up by the body. This routine is gradually learned by the body through various sensory cues or signals. So the
Right.
most important signal that regulates the daily cycle is light, the alternate day and light cycle. But parallel to that, various social and cultural cues like ringing of an alarm bell at a regular time every day, or whistling of the pressure cooker at a particular time of the day, ringing of the school bell at a particular time, the honking of the traffic by the side of the street. So there are so many signals. You will also see they also change throughout the day. The amount of traffic honking is not same throughout the day. The amount of noise that we hear on an average in the ambience is also not same throughout the day. The food that we eat tends to vary from time to time. Like you will have a different kind of food for breakfast and a different kind of food
Yes.
for dinner. These also give us certain cues. So the visual, auditory, the olfactory cues, they also help in training the circadian rhythm. What is becoming difficult in the lockdown period is that because we are all confined and other than the daylight cycle, of the sun, most of the other social cues or professional cues are totally absent. And so the
Yes.
circadian rhythm itself is also not getting the cues on which its routine is based. So you also
Right.
find that you are getting more bored, you are spending more time in the bed during daytime, causing insomnia in the nighttime. So in this way,
Right.
not only is your habit making this circadian rhythm disturbed, but also the lack of the social and biological cues is making the body more confused. And amidst all this confusion, the whole sleep-wake cycle is getting disturbed. So it's a very
Yes.
common consequence of such long stay at home.
Right. So, how does it affect that? For example, we are having a normal sleep schedule. We know that we go to sleep at this time, we wake up at this time. So, suddenly, if we are not following that schedule, so what is wrong? What is it that affects us? Like, how do we feel or how it affects us?
See, because the sleep wakeful cycle is not only about sleep, it's not only about waking up, it regulates many other properties of the nervous system and the endocrine system. For example, the sleep wakeful and the light dark cycle regulates the release of certain neurotransmitters in the brain, like melatonin, that regulates our mood. On the other hand, it regulates the release of cortisol at a particular cycle, which regulates various parameters of the body, including growth, sugar homeostasis, temperature, etc. Going beyond these very vegetative functions, at an intellectual level, certain stages of the sleep cycle are said to consolidate memory. And
Yes.
when we, instead of taking one single long sleep, break up the sleep into different parts, it does not really compensate what we would have achieved through one long sleep. One long sleep has certain stages. So there is a rapid eye movement stage and a non-rapid eye movement stage. Again, that stage is further divided, the non-REM, into four sub-stages. Now, when you take multiple short breaks of sleep, you're actually starting from the beginning again and never going through the complete cycle. So the problem is you are having similar part of the cycle again and again instead of completing one complete whole cycle. And so certain functions that depend on the sleep cycle, like the memory consolidation, like the mood, like concentration, etc., can also get affected. So sleep deprivation is often seen associated with some sort of mood disturbance, some sort of long-term hazard on the endocrine health, some kind of impact on the appetite cycle, and overall an impact on the learning and memory as well.
So, does it mean that someone who is having a disturbed sleep is more prone to be irritated all the time, more prone to
Yes,
have,
that is a very common finding.
yes,
Usually,
right,
sleep deprivation makes us very irritated, and also we tend to lose concentration in work. Work-related mistakes become more common, and that again adds to the irritation.
right. So, we have a question here by Shauradip Mukherjee. He is asking, due to this lockdown, people have become very lazy and many have started procrastinating things to a much greater extent, and the progress in studies and other things have decreased to a very low level. How to prevent this and increase our productivity?
See, this procrastination and the laziness that we are talking about here is actually a direct result of many things. One is that sometimes fear or uncertainty makes us take a laid back attitude, because once we understand that things are not in our control, we sometimes like to take a break and watch how things are going. This becomes a vicious cycle in itself. The more you get detached, the more you lose control, and gradually that cycle consumes you. It's very relatable to students. You will remember this example probably. Suppose you are not well prepared with a particular subject before the examinations. So if you decide that I'm very much scared of that subject and I'll not touch that subject, then you will see you will get more and more scared of the subject because you are getting more and more detached from the subject. That is one part of the psychological defense. Another very important issue is that when you have more time to think about, which you normally would not have, negative and positive both kind of thoughts can start crowding your mind. So maybe in a usual situation where you are caught up in your daily routine, certain jobs become mechanically done. So you are accustomed to doing certain things, visiting certain classrooms, doing certain assignments because you have to do that. And in between, there are areas of retrospection and self evaluation. Now, the whole of the time is available for looking back at yourself. While it can be productive to some extent, depending on what you are thinking about, it can also bring about more negative thoughts. It can generate even automatic negative thoughts where you start doing imaginary conversation with yourself or with other people on a negative note. And this
Yes.
can gradually convince you of the negativities and it can start consuming you. So, I do not really have one single solution for this, but maybe one thing that can help you is to become as much busy as possible with what you already like. So try maintaining a routine, a schedule that you already maintained. Of course, you cannot go out of your home, but if you would have had classes from 10 to 4, maybe from 10 to 2 at least, you can have your own classes at home, or maybe intercept that with a hobby like reading or music or doing something that you like to do. So when that routine is made, maybe even the routine you will not be able to follow totally, but there will be an impetus to follow that. Sometimes doing certain assignments in group helps because there is a liability that you are subjected to in a group. So suppose three of the friends decide that we will finish this chapter or finish watching this movie or TV series within this period of time. So when you don't participate in that, you feel liable or answerable to them. That way, you are also bound to be more stuck to your plan than doing it alone.
So basically, what you're saying is we need to put checkpoints in our whole day so that we are knowing that where are we spending our time and what to do next.
Yes, very much.
Yes. Okay. So another thing that we are facing, another aspect of this lockdown, staying at home, as you said, that we have a lot of time to think both negative and positive thoughts. And so how can this bring a tension in our family, in our families, with our family members? Could be with our siblings or with a partner. So is it having a negative impact on such relationships as well?
Can you kindly reframe the question once again?
I was asking that since we are spending so much time at home with people who we are not used to spending time,
Yes.
like it could be our parents, it could be our siblings, our partners. So, how is it negatively affecting our mental health, or is it causing a stress or a tension between the relationships?
Over the last few weeks, the kind of questions I have been receiving from the viewers was actually centered largely around the question that you are asking me now. We have been hearing that people are having a more heated argument and disagreements with their parents, with their family members, siblings, and partners that they usually did not have to this extent. Now, to start with this, you see, the more you stay together in one place, there is more contact time between you. More contact means more interaction, which means there are also more scopes of disagreement.
Right.
Also, in today's world where we live in small households with nuclear family setup, we are used to having a lot of the so-called me time, where you spend time with yourself. To some extent, it's important also to spend time with yourself, to speak to your inner self, and spend doing what you like the most. Now, when there are so many people crowding the household, which they should not usually do because people are busy doing things outside, so there is also less physical and emotional space where you can be yourself. That is also adding to the irritation. Uh, in a way, uh, being together in the family could have helped us bond better, but at the same time the differences can accelerate. The things that we tend to not notice in a hurry are now easily noticed, and you have a lot of time to think about it, brood about it, and argue about it. So I think one way to avoid this is to understand that the other person who is shouting at you is equally or maybe more distressed than you are. So if we are empathetic to each other, if we are a bit considerate and understand that this is actually not the right time to shout at each other, and there are things that can be ignored, so maybe on at least the small trivial issues on which we are fighting can be slightly avoided.
Right. So this is actually a very common situation. Excuse me, because we as students we stay in hostel, most of us, or we go to college. People who do jobs or students who go to school, they are not used to staying at homes for such long periods. So this is actually a very prevalent issue right now. So I'd like to take up a few questions here. Nishchay is asking, I'm staying with my grandmother currently. She's facing a complete disruption of her daily schedule and she's terrified with the news. Can't go on walks. Relatives can't come and visit her. What are some good mental health tips for the elderly?
Uh, Yes, this is actually a very big issue because the elderly people are more prone to loneliness and depression. So,
Yes.
this lockdown is actually proving very costly for them. One way in which Nishchay you can help your grandmother is if she is not uh, accustomed with the new telecommunication technologies, you can actually help with your mobile phone, helping her set up video calls with the relatives so that she can actually be in a virtual touch. I'm sure that she will enjoy this too. And that is actually one good way to keep in touch because uh, although we, as a newer generation, are more accustomed to texting or snapping each other, this is not something that the senior generation can relate to. They relate more to looking at each other, talking to each other. And when they laugh, they want the other person's smile to be visible. So a video call is a good option in nowadays world. So you can actually try using video call options for her to get in touch with other members of the family, if that is possible. If that is not possible, then at least an extended audio call where she can talk a lot, speak a lot, and vent out regarding the loneliness that she is facing. Also, try to find out what are the other things that she likes other than the ones that you mentioned. I'm sure that other than going on long walks or relatives visiting her, there were hobbies that she has gradually forgotten. We all have. Because as we get busy with our life, we tend to forget what we used to enjoy when we were younger. So, if those things can be discovered when you try to rediscover them and try those simple things that would make her happy, maybe she will not only be very happy, she will also understand your empathy towards her, and this will build a better connection between you and your grandmother.
So this was a very important topic which came up. So our next question is by Ariba. She's asking, so what can we do about managing anger and irritability due to staying at home for an excessive period of time?
We have already partly answered this question. This irritability is partly because of the uncertainty, partly because of the helplessness that we are having. It's also because of the extended contact with family members that we are not very used to. So, probably getting yourself into a routine might help. Also, if you think that the anger is directed towards some people in particular, and that is exacerbating in this period of time, I think it will be good if you also have a leisure routine with them. I'm giving an example of what I mean with this. Suppose you set up a routine of 4 hours or 5 hours in a day where you engage in your own studies, hobbies, film watching, etc., but also devote 1 or 2 hours with the family members, say, for example, playing cards or having tea together or watching something which you may even feel very silly, but they like it, like a soap or a serial that goes on that they engage in. So that way, some kind of connection builds up. And even if initially these 1 or 2 hours seem to you as something that you are actively trying, I'm sure that over the time you will get used to it, and this will help the rest of the hours that you do not spend doing this become easier. because you will have common things to talk about, you will have common issues to ponder about, and I'm sure that some kind of bond will develop.
Right. So this was about us stuck at home during this extended periods of lockdown. So moving on, we'll come to a different aspect of this lockdown, which is education. So as students, we see that our lives have come to a standstill. So dividing the students into two categories. First, are students who are going to college, who are going to school, who do not have any major exam, or they don't have the fear of dropping a year if all these exams or their semesters are blocked or postponed. And there's another group of students whose entrance exams or boards exams have been postponed and they do not know when they are going to have the exams. So, talking about them, their anxiety, what would be your suggestion to them?
See, in general, the kind of anxiety that we are now having on this education system as a whole uh, actually makes us ponder about our priorities in education. So you see that now we can see people learning on their own using ebooks, using e-forums, online classes are taking place. You can also see that exams are getting postponed. We are rethinking about the evaluation pattern. Now, before I start explaining the psychology behind this kind of an emotional breakdown related to academics, I'll quote one of my teachers. One of my teacher has been a very respected faculty in one of the medical colleges, and he also had the experience of being the principal of several medical colleges. So he was sharing with me one day saying that today you are worried that the examinations might get postponed for a few months, but when they were training as undergraduate medical students, that was in the 70s, and the political scenario of West Bengal was not very steady. So their 6 year of MBBS course got prolonged to 8.5 years. So their examination had to wait for 2.5 years, and they passed out after 8.5 years of admission, and that too by regularly attending the examination and passing everything at the first chance. So there are situations that we sometimes have in life which are not totally in our control. It's very important that we understand that getting a paper certificate or a qualification cannot be the final goal of education. While I say this, I also understand that I am part of a system. Even I do evaluation, I mark my students, I publish examination results. But that is something that I do as a job. It doesn't necessarily mean that I approve that wholeheartedly. Learning and getting a qualification are entirely two different aspects. So those students who think that their entire academic career has come to a standstill, please believe that it has not, because this is something that the whole world is surviving through. Being alive, surviving, and seeing the next generation is a bigger challenge now than passing an examination and getting some self-scored marks in that examination. I mean, that is something very trivial right at this point of time. So the whole human kind is under attack. And if we still think that getting a particular degree or getting promoted is our primary concern, then probably our education has gone all wrong. So, secondly, what is also important is you understand that if your examinations or courses get delayed by some days, months, or years, that will also happen parallelly in all courses.
Exactly.
So, nothing is going to affect you in singularity. So it's very important that during this time we stay connected. We develop a holistic model of education where education is not limited to the confinements of class and books. And after this crisis is over, of course, it will be over sometime. When we get back to the classroom, then let us get back with this vision that yes, we are back to the classroom. There are things that we can learn here, But the learning neither started here nor will end here. It's only one of the many ways of learning. So maybe that is what we can take back home from this pandemic.
As you said, that this is not the end. So, like, we as students who are going to college, who are going to school, have seen that our education has come to a standstill just because our college or schools have stopped. So, does it indirectly imply that we were so dependent on our college or schools that education has become limited to just going to college and giving exams?
Yes, of course it has been. You just look at the education system nowadays, you will see people think of a subject as equivalent to a book. That is
Right.
the saddest thing that can happen. So I have seen students asking me that if I read this book XYZ, will my knowledge about this subject PQ be complete? The answer is no, it
Right.
can never be complete. The book is only one of the ways to learn the subject, and it is not the subject in itself. So, our ideas have become so much focused on the physical attributes and the physical signifiers of education that the core philosophy has been neglected. To put it into perspective, I'll give you a very simple example of how the whole concept of education has been suffering. You see that when we go to school, there is parallel to our academic upliftment, there is also a kind of moral training and moral development. Look at what we understand as the concept of a good student or a good girl or a good boy. Schools help us in many ways in shaping our character, in shaping our outlook to the external world, in training us academically and also beyond the academics. But it also forms a foundation where the very constructs of what is normal and what is abnormal, what is right and what is wrong, is very strictly reinforced. This reinforcement may provide an initial framework on which people base their judgment. But the problem starts when you cannot go beyond that frame. When you start judging the rest of the world based on your own definition of black and white. And this is what usually strict school education does to you. It blurs your vision to multiple possibilities, to diversities, to the respectful way of learning by questioning. It sometimes makes you feel that uh, totally submitting to the authority or
Yes.
like gestures like standing up when a senior is coming up is equal to giving that senior the respect. Now
Hmm.
you understand that standing up can be a gesture that shows respect. But if suppose I am busy doing something and I cannot stand up, that does not necessarily mean I have disrespect that person. So the very constructs of good, bad, normality are so strongly reinforced that social approval, public approval, and popularity of a particular concept becomes a paradigm of right and wrong for us. And
Yes.
when that school and college is no longer becoming a part of your life, people who totally depend on this construct are totally clueless about their approval. There is no one to pat the back and say, so you are a good boy, you are a good girl. So,
Right.
because of lack of this approval, you suddenly start feeling helpless. It's
Hmm.
important to understand again that school is an important gateway to education, but it cannot be the entire construct of the education. The education that we receive sometimes can be self-generated. It can be generated from nature. It can be generated from the people we interact with, from the family, from the books that we read, and throughout the life through reflection and self-actualization. So this, Namrata, I think is my take on this thing.
Sir, am I audible? I think we sir just got disconnected. I'm trying to
Am I connected
connect.
now?
Sir, I can see you and I can hear you. Namrata, can you see, sir?
No, I cannot see nor hear him. It is
You
Well,
can
I
hear
can
yes,
say
I
I
me,
can.
can
so
hear
both
Namrata.
of you are
Yeah.
connected.
Okay.
I can hear Namrata. I can also hear Azhar.
Here.
Okay, so Namrata, you are audible to sir. You can ask any questions if there
Okay.
are.
So The question, there was a question in the personal chat. I'll just check once. Yes, the question is, for the first 1.5 months of the lockdown, I had to stay absolutely alone in my college town. It was an immensely difficult time for me, doing everything by myself. And now that I'm home, I realize that 50 days absolutely without physical human interaction um, has traumatized me more than I thought it had. And I'm having regular severe breakdowns. I can't eat. Neither can I interact with my family members properly. How should I help myself?
Hmm.
I
So,
cannot hear, sir.
see, I think also this is on the same spectrum as the problems that we were discussing. Um, since,
But I
am I
cannot
audible to
hear,
the
sir,
rest of
at
you,
all.
Azhar? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. So, it is actually very difficult to
Yes.
leave.
Sir, you can answer your question. We'll see what the problem on the other side is.
Okay, okay. So, see, what we understand from your question is that um, you were having a difficult time because you had to do everything on by yourself, and first 1.5 month of the lockdown, you had to stay absolutely alone in your college town. Now, yeah, it's true that when we are totally deprived of physical contact, uh, the social cues are absent, and it becomes very difficult to live without such communication. So, actually, there is no single solution to this because, as I told you, this condition is unprecedented. It was never welcome at the first point of time. So, I personally feel that if it is possible for you to at least technically connect to them through video chats, you be in touch with your friends, you speak to social forums where there are people to interact. Getting a voice is also very important, so try to actually speak to people. If possible, do video calls to see them and speak to them, and this can at least virtually to some extent relieve the social aloofness that you're facing right now. So, Namrata, can you hear me now? Or maybe Azhar, if you can slightly take over for some time.
Yes, sir. I think there is another text in the private chat. I'm just looking over it and I'll read it out to you. Namrata, in the meantime, please refresh your browser. Okay, Namrata got disconnected for some reason.
Okay.
Okay, so we do not have any new questions in the private text. Namrata, can you hear us? I think you are back. Alright, so we have a very interesting question in the questions tab. Uh, Masood Rafe, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong, but is asking, is something wrong with me if I'm actually enjoying the lockdown?
Absolutely not, because as I told you, that the constructs of what we should like and what we should not like, uh, it is not, and it is also not supposed to be same for everyone. So there are things that one can like, and the same thing can be disliked by the other person. So as long as you think you are not causing any harm to yourself, and you are not also causing any overt harm to anyone else, there is no point in getting guilty about disagreeing with the common notions that other people hold. People who are introvert might actually like the lockdown. People who are selectively extrovert might also like the lockdown because they tend to now selectively spend time with people they like and not compulsorily be in contact with people they hate to meet. So that way, it can actually be a time that many people have been craving for a long time, and it is acting like kind of an emotional vacation for them to generate more self time, to revitalize their social battery and prepare for the post lockdown phase.
So, am I visible and audible now?
You are audible but not visible to me.
Okay, that's fine. So, we can discuss a few more questions then. So, Rashmi Mantri is asking, how does one help children who are continually exposed to excess screen time due to online classes every day? Does this cause anxiety too?
Yes, this is actually a very vital question in today's time because although we are promoting video chatting and other technological media as a means to remain connected to our family, peers, and friends, for children, particularly for young children, this can be a major stress because you see that with time, as technology has given us the opportunity to stay connected 24 into 7, we have started taking the virtual world very personally. Like when you read something in the post book, when you comment something in someone else's feed, you have this background feeling that you are actually talking to that person. That is the reason why sometimes people become too emotional on social media. People take things personally, people fight back, people get angry, people cry over the social media. That's because in a way they connect their true self with the virtual self that they have created. This connection may not be very obvious in children. The children may not look at the screen and think that that is where they belong or where their teachers belong or their friends belong. So it becomes more of an extended television time for them, which instead of giving entertainment all the time, is also asking them to study. This connection of what that flat thing is and why would that thing instruct me to do something in a more human manner is sometimes very stressful to comprehend for younger children. So that is one part of the stress. And continuously looking at and sitting in front of a screen instead of a moving human being, an animate human being, is also another stress because, as I just now expressed, that many children cannot uh, get this idea, fathom the idea of a virtual avatar becoming the real teacher or the real friend. So there is always a lack of connection and also the stress of sitting at the same space, confined in some way in front of a screen. This is also causing a lot of stress. So, if necessary, I think it's important that the teachers also understand that this time is being stressful for everyone. So there will be particularly small children who will not be able to finish all assignments in right time. uh, I think the time should be more individualized rather than generalized because they are not accustomed to this kind of online learning. So learning, if it happens in a very happy way in the lockdown period, can also become a way of alleviating or reducing the anxiety. But if the learning itself becomes a stress, it will start adding up to the anxiety that the children are already facing. So, Namrata, can you hear me?
So, can you hear me now?
I can hear you all through.
Okay, fine. So, coming back to this topic, there is another aspect of this is the communication skills in young children. So, since they are not going to school, they are not interacting with others of their age. So, how do you think this is affecting their communication skills and social skills?
Yes, for young children, it is definitely affecting their social skills because, particularly in nowadays world, families are not big. Most of them do not have cousins or brothers and sisters, or even children of the same age in the same complex or community. So already there is a loneliness creeping in, and this absence of contact with their peers can actually become very painful and disturbing if the lockdown is really extended for a longer time. Namrata, there is one question I can see in the chat box. So if
Yes.
you want, I can take that up. There is one
Yes,
question
sure, sure.
which I found very relevant in today's world. Is the lockdown leading to increase in cyberbullying? Yes, this is a very important question because over the last few
Yes.
weeks, we have seen cyberbullying of different sort in the internet. We have also
Yes.
seen people venting out their problems, the way they have been abused in institutions or by individuals, voicing their concerns and also voicing their concerns. We have also seen accusations that some of these accusations are not right, and people are misusing the public forum for defaming or maligning other people's reputation. I'm not
Right.
getting into which one is true and which one is not. The question is, why are such things surfacing at such a high frequency during the lockdown? Now, understand one thing, that if you really think that there are different kinds of people that we live with in the society, there are people who have psychopathic tendency, who are abusive. There are people who are vulnerable. There are people who are more emotional than the rest. There are people who can cope with stress better. So this mixed bag of people living in a society were always there. The only thing that is happening now is that a direct person to person contact is not happening. And so the way they used to manifest in the workplace, in the school, in the college, and in the day to day life, it's not happening that way. So the only way they can manifest is through the cyber world. So there were always colleagues who would talk bad about you. And now, because there is this office space is dissolved, they are talking bad about you in the online forum. There were people who would abuse you, maybe physically, sexually, or emotionally. Now that this abuse cannot happen in person, that is manifesting in the online forum. So, what we are seeing is not probably an increase in the bully were already there. There is a transformation of the offline bully into an online bully because the
Online.
offline forum is no longer available. That is my way of looking at the thing.
So, next, coming to the next questions, this is a question. This question is from Farheen. With continued lockdown, there is an increase in the number of suicides. What is making these people feel so low that they decide to end their life?
Now, see, suicide is always taken as a red flag in psychiatry, something that should always be taken seriously. There are certain personality types, certain psychological conditions, social stressors, financial, economic, and other parameters that can lead a person towards self harm. Now, it is probably not that the lockdown itself is leading to a self harm behavior. Understand that lockdown is only the stressor. There are different outcomes of this lockdown. So, for example, suppose a person was already stressed because he had or she had a not good relationship with the parents. Now, the lockdown is only reinforcing the contact between that child and the parents. Suppose a person already was going through a financial crisis. Now, the lockdown is accelerating the financial crisis. Suppose a person had a background comorbid condition of panic attack. Now, the lockdown is adding agoraphobia to the panic attack. So
Yes.
that way, the lockdown can add an additional stressor to the already present stress, or can generate new stress because of hopelessness, because of joblessness, because of as we already discussed, increased argument and disagreements with their close individuals in the family, and this can trigger self-harm behavior. It's very important that when such behaviors are noted, either in the self or in people who are around you, that should be immediately noted and reported to a proper forum, like to a psychiatrist, to a psychologist, or to an organization that works with mental well-being, so that appropriate emergency measure can be taken.
So, do you think that before the lockdown, when people had such things in mind, suicidal thoughts or something, they could vent it out to their friends or their peers who they were very close to, which is now not possible, and that is leading to get them getting more depressed and other manifestations?
Yes, the causes may be multifactorial, and I think each cause can be attuned to at the individual uh, lifestyle of the person. So there is no single reason as to why people will feel depressed. The lockdown, the peculiarity about this lockdown, Namrata, is that as we have, as individuals, different ways of thinking, different moral values, different priorities, different expectations. So the lockdown is also affecting all of us in different ways.
Yes.
Although there are some common ways it is affecting the mass in general, but the individual way these parameters are affecting us are always more individual than generalized.
Right. So the next question is by Shauradipta Mukherjee. He's asking, as a doctor, what is your take on diet and kinds of food we all should intake as the kind of activities and intensity of our daily activities is low as compared to normal days?
Yes, Shorodipta, this is one thing that always creates controversy and debate in the field of physiology and medicine. Diet is something we understand the least, to be very honest. So there are experimental diets that people claim to work. There are conventional diets that people claim are failing, and the opposite is also true. So the best guide to your diet is, one important concern in the lockdown period is, if you get unwell with the food, it will be very difficult to get admitted to a hospital, because they are now
Yes.
totally dedicated to the COVID-19 situation. So eat healthy food, fresh food, warm food, and light food that you can easily digest, so that you don't get sick. Also, if the activities are less, cut down on the amount of food. Now, on what type of food you take, there is actually no clear guideline. So you can just cut down on the amount of food that you used to take normally, keeping the nature of the food same, and making the diet a bit more simple, so that you don't fall ill due to taking spicy food. That's all.
So another question by Ayush Mukherjee. Once the lockdown is lifted, what are the odds that people would have developed agoraphobia and would avoid going out?
Now, see, there is a misconception about the word agoraphobia as well. Agoraphobia is not, as it is said in some medical books, it is not the fear of open space. Agoraphobia is the fear of being in a condition from where escape is difficult. So, for example, suppose you are in a flight. Now, even if you want, you cannot get down from the flight. So, it will only land in its destined time, and you can only get down after that. Or you are in a long distance train journey. You cannot easily get down from the train. Or you are in the examination hall, and the rule is that you cannot go out before the last bell rings. So these are situations where attacks of agoraphobia occur. It is not necessary that the place have to be either crowded or empty. So maybe I will reframe your question. People who have agoraphobia are actually experiencing agoraphobia now, because they cannot go out of their home because of the lockdown
Right.
situation. And actually, with the lifting up of the lockdown, the agoraphobia will be slightly relieved. Also, probably agoraphobia does not develop in that way. It's not like you get accustomed to staying at home and so you become not accepting of the outside. Probably it doesn't work that way.
Right. So Arushi is asking, so with the onset of online classes, we have to attend classes from our room or home, but the atmosphere is very different from a classroom. Thus, it is harder to focus and derive the best of it. How should we deal with this?
Yeah, this is a very important situation from the students' end as well as from the teachers' end. So I totally agree with the problem you're facing. So there will be situations where there will be background noise, there will be people talking to each other, there may be a television running in the background. Then, if you have pets at home, they can knock on the door, scratch on the door, or come and disturb you. So there are multiple issues. One good way is, if it is possible or feasible in your family, during the period of the class, if it is possible to go to a silent place, or at least in a room that can be locked. But not every house will also have this facility. In that case, maybe you can try to mute your own video and audio, so that if becomes a practice, then no one else's audio and video will distract the other people, and only keep the teacher's video on. And only occasionally, when you have to interact with the teacher, you turn on your video and audio and speak to that person.
Right. Another question by Arushi. So, due to the lockdown, the children these days are more than used to, almost addicted to, spending all their time with digital devices and less time being with people or picking different hobbies. What can we do about it?
See, because they are getting access to the devices, they are using it. So if the access is restricted, they will definitely not be able to use it. I'm sure the children are not buying it themselves. So someone is buying those things or giving access to those things. And also the second thing, think from the children's perspective also, you are asking that why are they spending more time with digital devices and spending less time with people? So you can also ask this question to the people whom they are not getting along with. So, what's wrong with those people? Are we also seeing parents, seniors, or elder brothers and sisters getting glued to the mobile phone and not willing to spend time with the children? So, that is also another side of the coin.
Right. So, it's not to blame the children only.
Yes, of course not.
It
They are
is not their fault.
what we're seeing. So either you have to restrict the access to such devices, supplement that with something that they can spend time with, like other kinds of games or books, and actually spend your time with them when you are not going through the mobile phone. You have to set the example yourself.
Right. So, I think we've covered almost all the questions which had come up and whatever we had to talk about. And this was a really amazing session we've had today. I would like to thank you so much, sir, for joining us here and sharing your views. This was a very big opportunity for us to learn and to interact with each other. So, what would you say, sir?
Well, it was also my pleasure because I usually like uh, not only attending such sessions but also interacting with all of you because it gives me a window of opportunity to know what the new generation is thinking. And this new generation is the growing and the future generation. So we have to depend on you. So it's important that we be in touch with uh, the way you are thinking, the way the future world is evolving. And that way, maybe we can at least try to survive and be part of the future world that you're going to create.
Thank you so much, sir. So, I'd like to hand over the mic to Emo Singh. What would they have to say something about this?
Yeah, so am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Namrata, can you please transfer the session control to me so that I can give a short demo of the focus groups that we have been talking about?
Yes, sure. I am transferring the session control.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much, Namrata. Okay, so as is my screen visible? Uh, Namrata, is my screen visible?
It is loading, but it's not visible yet. Yes, it is visible now.
Okay, great. So as we've been talking a lot about very different issues during this webinar, we as ImmuSync and Doctors for a Cause thought that we should not let you go with just a 1 hour webinar on these topics. Rather, we should keep in touch with you and answer your queries, have a conversation with you on these very topics. So, as our token of gratitude, we have something for you. So this is the ImmuSync platform. You can access it by typing. So that is the ImmuSync platform. You can simply go to the website and you can join. And I'm just telling you about the focus groups. So we have a demo profile available. I'm just going to log in. Okay, so on the top right, there are three options: notifications, messages, and profile. When you go to the message box, under the rooms section, you will find a global chat room and 4 focus groups. The four focus groups as of now, specifically based on this webinar, are stress and anxiety, feeling unproductive, uncertainty in life, and sleeplessness. You can join any room and you can simply have a conversation over it. For example, this is the stress and anxiety focus group. You can start a conversation just by typing, I am having severe stress. So this is how you start a conversation, and as more people keep joining in, we can have a holistic, activity-based, conversation-driven approach to fight your problems. We will keep adding more focus groups to this setup as we keep going on with our webinars, both Doctors for a Cause and Emosync. So that is about the focus group. Now, Namrata, should I tell the people about our webinar tomorrow, or do you want to say something from Doctors for a Cause? Namrata?
Please carry on. Please carry on.
Okay, so Doctors for a Cause has been not celebrating, has been doing a lot of stuff for Mental Health Month. Now, Emosync has also been doing a webinar series, especially for this lockdown period. We are calling it the Lockdown Blues series, and we have a webinar tomorrow. It's about staying positive and breaking the pattern. Uh, the speakers will be Dr. Fatima Khanam, who is a clinical psychologist, and Dr. Tirthankar Thakurta, who just took us through a very beautiful webinar. Please join in. You will find the joining details on the Emosync Facebook page. You can find it, and I think it will also be shared from Doctors for a Cause, or you can simply reach out to any one of us after this webinar, and we will give you the registration details. So that's it from my side. Namrata, you can rebook the session control, and we can probably conclude the session.
Yes, before concluding the session, I would like to tell our audience a little bit about Doctors for a Cause, about the mental health month that we are observing now. So I'll be sharing a screen right now. So just let me know if the screen is visible or not. Is it visible?
No, Namrata, it's not yet loaded, I think.
Just let me know when
Okay.
it is visible.
It is visible.
Is it visible?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is visible.
So this month of May, as all of you know, we are observing the Mental Health Month. It's a month-long endeavor where we are having a variety of events. So one of them is the competition where we are asking participants to give their entries regarding mental health awareness, and we will be featuring their artwork, writing, etc. on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Next is the series of webinar like the one we had just now. Today's was week 1. There are three more webinars coming up every Saturday, 7 p.m., same time, same place. So please stay tuned for that. And these are some other topics we would like to cover in the coming month, the coming days. So stay tuned and check out our Instagram handles if you have not done it already. So with this, I'd like to ask you for your participation. Here's my number if you want to get in touch with us. If you want to be a part of this, please go to our Facebook and Instagram pages to know more about us. And with that, I think we can conclude today's session. I would like to thank Tirthankar sir for being here with us today, and for Emosync for collaborating with us, And thank you to all of the audience for their time, for interacting with us and making this webinar a success. So thank you. Is there anything anybody wants to say, or we can conclude this session otherwise? Okay then. Thank you.